Thank you so much for joining me today. Josh Jordan or Josh David Jordan? What do you prefer to go by?
Josh David Jordan when it's all filmmaking. Just
It's all,
Josh is fine when we're hanging out. But yeah, Josh David Jordan. There's a Josh Jordan that actually is a photographer in New York City.
oh
Uh,
my,
he does fashion photography, so I try to separate myself from his talents.
good thinking. And
Mhm.
also Jonathan Jackson, who participated in this film to some extent. So there's just a lot of J's
There's a
going
lot of changes.
around. Yeah, I feel deprived actually. I'm gonna buy a J next time I get a chance. And Father Theophan Warren. I'm really glad to have you here too. And your role is very important. We're going to be talking about the movie El Tonto por Cristo, which is currently in production. And Father Theophan is the liturgical, theological, and in all possible intellectual ways, authority and guide for this project. Yes, I wanted to talk to you, Josh, about your movie, El Tanto por Cristo, movie currently underway in process. And tell me a little bit about just a summary of the movie. Could you make a one sentence if you had to sum it up? What's the point or the intent of this movie, or what's it about? However you want to phrase that.
We're still working on all the log line and all the title stuff that'll go on the poster. But to simplify it for people in America, I would think it's because this is it's an American Orthodox folktale about a whimsical bull for Christ who lives at a monastery on the coast of Texas, and a lot of people think he's maybe not all there sometimes, and so there's a little bit of humor without it being a comedy. So there's lots of that in the film. We shot it like a European cinematic film, so it's in black and white. It's in the aspect ratio of European cinema, which is 1:6:6:1. So I really wanted every frame to almost be a photograph, because there's such beauty in this simplicity of this monastery and the cells and such, and also with the cathedral and the
Mhm. Yes, I've seen some, little short clips from the movie, and I think the fact that it is in black and white is one of the most powerful things about it.
Mhm.
The first time I saw that footage of the waves breaking on the southern coast of Texas in the Gulf of Mexico in black and white, and hearing it, I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. There's just something that seemed profound about it.
Yeah,
That's
and that was something and very intentional, because Orthodoxy is so beautiful when you walk into a temple, a chapel, a cathedral, and all the iconography, even like at our houses and all the iconography, and there's so much beauty in that, and we see that a lot in documentaries that are already made. We see a lot of it. I think people do associate Orthodoxy with beauty, obviously, and icons and paintings, and but when you're in say a cathedral and you're at a divine liturgy, and it's not about just the icons in the room. It's the smell of the incense. It's the smell of the beeswax candles. It's the movement of moving around. It's the bells. And so you're not going to be able to feel that in the movie. So I wanted to take the color away. And so you just had the story, and you were focused on other things instead of just an icon. The icons are there, but they're in black and white, and they look very beautiful in black and white as well. So
they do. They look different, but very beautiful. So that's interesting to me that you wanted to take away part of the beauty in order to really to focus people, to focus their minds a little more closely. And as you say, the icons in black and white are equally beautiful and somehow even more powerful, I think.
mm,
Yeah. I guess I should say before we go too much further, you are a convert to the Orthodox Church, like me.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
for almost 10 years we've been Orthodox, and I was actually making my first feature film when we became Orthodox. I was working on the idea of it, and that's the crazy thing is being Orthodox for 10 years. I kept telling myself, like, maybe I'm not Orthodox enough to tell this tale, or maybe that's why I should make this movie, is because that's how I feel. It's that point of view.
Yes, I think there's value in hearing from people for whom orthodoxy is still somewhat fresh and surprising.
Mm.
I think that is part, in my own case, my book Facing East. I had only been Orthodox 2 years, and so it's the book that I couldn't write today.
Mm.
But I could write then, and it was, walk with me as we encounter these surprising new things.
Wow.
And there's a kind of freshness and originality, I think, in that vision that can't be faked, once you're thoroughly down with it.
Correct.
And have you been a member of St. Seraphim Cathedral in Dallas all this time?
I have. That's where we were baptized and became Orthodox. It's still our home church. Father John Anderson, who recently retired, is my godfather. And so there's lots of blessings along the way. I'm very lucky to be Orthodox and be a part of St. Seraphim, and that cathedral.
Father Theophan, you're the liturgical theological advisor on the film. And how long have you been associated with St. Seraphim?
My wife and I moved down to Dallas, Texas in June of 2017. So about 6.5 years we've been at the cathedral.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. And I suppose you are also a convert. Is that right?
I am. My wife and I joined the Orthodox Church about 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm. About 30 years for me. So,
okay.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wow. Words cannot express. So. But if I can kind of start from the top with you, Josh, filmmaking is a very difficult art, and it is unlike any other art form. There's very little you as an individual can do. You need a huge team of sound people and light people and cinematographers and actors, all of whom have their own ideas about how things ought to go. And there's got to be a very high level of the ability to manage other people and still end up with something close to the vision you had at the beginning. Knowing what a difficult art form this is to manage, to create. What were the reasons you went into filmmaking instead of something easier like poetry, where you can sit in your room and nobody else is there?
I think I'm asking myself that question right now as I'm in the editing room. What was I thinking? You're right. It takes so many people, and just scheduling and organizing these people is it's like herding, cats. And yes, and Martin Scorsese said, you write the film 3 times. You write it when you write the script. Then you write the film again when you make the movie, because the wheels fall off sometimes and you have to pivot and readjust. And now we're in the editing process, and so we're rewriting the film again. But it's all the process. And I was an actor early on for many years. My dad was a traveling evangelist, and I used to always zoom towards the people who did the church puppets and put on all that. And I always wanted to see how those things worked. And then when they were, if my dad and mom were on the road and I had school, my grandmother would I would stay with her, and she would let me, with one eye open, I think, watch movies late at night. And so it was just in my gene, in my blood, I wanted to do that. But, being in the boot hill of Missouri, how do you become Hitchcock? I don't know. And so acting was the closest thing to do. And so I acted for many years, and I would be on a movie set or a TV show, and always there was a little bit of a void or an emptiness, because you were there for maybe a day, maybe you were there for a week. And your part is very small in telling the story. Like, you don't really have full control. And so I was a part of the Okra House Theater here in Dallas, Texas. Matthew Posey, who plays the lead in El Tonto per Cristo, is the creative director. And I just watched Matt write these plays, and then we would put these plays on. And he gave me so much good advice that I thought, maybe I can write a script. But I don't want to do a play. I want to do a film. And so at that time, I was doing a lot of video commercial work, and a lot of music videos for everyone. And so I was like, well, I didn't go to film school, but I've watched enough movies. I've read enough books. I want to give this a go. And so I made my first full-length feature film in 2020, This World Won't Break.
Yes.
So
And
that's
were you making, how did COVID affect the making of that movie? Was that an extra, monkey wrench you had to deal with?
it didn't affect the making of, but when we were on the film festival tour promoting the movie, and we were getting more and more higher end music festivals, and me and my wife and the main actor were flying back. We were invited to Glasgow, and our film premiered there, their European tour, and we were flying back, and all of our phones start going off, and it says South by Southwest is canceled, and I knew then, this is going to get weird. And by the time we landed, it was all, the world had changed. But fortunately, on the positive side, people couldn't make films because of the pandemic, and everyone was streaming everything, and so there was little content, and everyone was watching everything. So distribution companies were reaching out, and they needed content, and we that was a very big blessing for us, to be in a pickle and then turn around and you say, oh man, well now everyone's going to get to see our film, and so it's on every platform out there now, and on DVD copies and stuff.
Tell us the title again.
It's This World Won't Break. It's the story of a 40-year-old musician in Dallas, Texas, who realizes one day that he hasn't made it yet. And what do you do at that point? Do you give up and get a real job? I mean, what is that? Or do you keep going and see if it all works out? And so I just wanted to tell the story of what happens as an artist when, we put a lot of things on artists who don't make it. Like, you have to make it to be successful. But I think just doing your craft and making a living is good enough. And so that was the story I wanted to tell.
That's good. And it was obviously welcomed at festivals all over the world, and won many awards. And now it is, as you say, streaming everywhere. So anyone that looks it up,
and that's another, this world won't break. And that's the thing about filmmaking is, I'm not like a musician or somebody like that. Is after you work and make this movie and it's your art, you have to give it away, and you're no longer attached to it. It's because I'm not sitting in everyone's living room watching their response. So it's almost like, I guess, being a painter. You make a painting and someone buys it and it hangs in someone else's home or gallery.
Yes. Or writing a book.
Correct.
You get a hard copy book and you can't go back and strike out a passage or it's there, it's existing. So
yes, 100%.
Losing control of the thing we create is an interesting dilemma for artists of every kind. Well, you mentioned that it actually was a help in some ways, that COVID meant that the networks were looking for content, and that gave you a larger platform to be seen. Yes. And in the making of this new movie, El Tonto por Cristo, you had something else that gave you an unexpected boost, which was the SAG-AFTRA strike.
Yes.
What did that mean for you in terms of the cost, for one thing, of filming?
That was my first thought was, oh, this is like the pandemic, but different. It's just, and so as everyone knows, like, the actors could not act in anything. They couldn't talk about anything, any of the films that they were in. So films that were already made, actors couldn't go to film festivals and talk about them. So we had to pivot once again, and we, with the prayers of St. Genesius and a lot of people, and also a lot of pestering SAG, a lot of emails and calls. They called one day and said, okay, here's the deal. You can make your movie, but you can't make any more this year because we can't deal with you guys anymore, because we're so, we tried so hard. So, yes. And so I think it was like maybe a week before we started shooting, we got it. And so it's so hard to coordinate everyone. And so we said, okay, we're just going to coordinate everyone. We rented all the gear. We had people's flights, and we were praying every single moment that we would get the SAG interim agreement. And after the day that we got it, they paused, and there was like 1,500 films that were trying to get made that were stopped. So it was just, it was amazing.
Gosh, it really was. Well, it seems like the hand of God is on this movie, and that it was guided through these various hoops you have to jump through. I had the thinking of you know, buying the plane tickets and everything. I thought, well, that's stepping out in faith.
Mm.
But if you don't know what the future holds, it could
Yes.
be like stepping out on the plank as the pirates force you off the end.
True.
You're in
Yes.
over your head, and there's nothing you can do at that point. So
This is true.
it's wonderful that that worked out so well then. So we'll say the name of the movie very distinctly.
Mhm.
I can't speak Spanish. El
Mhm.
Tonto por Cristo. Is that
Yes.
how you say it?
Father Theophan says it a lot better than I do.
Say it, Father Theophan.
El Tonto por Cristo, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sounds better.
El
Yes.
tonto can mean dumb or stupid or foolish. So el tonto would be the fool for Christ, the
For
translation.
Cristo. Yes, for Christ. Where did you get the idea for this movie, Josh?
So being Orthodox, and like we talked about, being inside a cathedral, or a temple in Orthodox, and seeing all the icons in service or at a wedding, or you're just constantly reminded, these lives of saints. And that's the beauty for me for Orthodoxy is even if your attention is diverted in service, it's always brought back because of the beauty of the icons. And there's always somebody different, that pops up that I maybe hadn't seen before in a detail. And I just thought how beautiful that was that Vladimir at our cathedral got to paint these things and tell the story. And I was like, well, I want to tell a story too. But there's so many great stories of saints, and so I said, well, what do I do? Because I don't want to. It's almost like that's better in documentary form sometimes to tell a story like that. Because you can really show the whole life. Sometimes if you do just one story, it's hard to, and so I said, well, what if I pull from all my favorite stories that I've been reading, and I had so many books that there was a point that I think I was subconsciously writing and not even knowing sometimes what saints I was pulling from, which made it almost all the more better for me, because I knew that was true of these books. Like the words of our Desert Fathers was a really a big impact on me, because it was these things that you could take in and really read about. And so I wasn't sure what the story was going to be. I really wasn't. And then it just started to happen. But I do know I was inspired by Andrei Rublev. Tarkovsky is Andrei Rublev. And me and Father Theophan talked about that film as well, and a lot of people. And that's also a subconscious where the black and white came from. And I just loved this. I loved the fact that Orthodoxy was not just the background, but at times it wasn't always just up front. It was always there. And if I could write something that was simple enough, and so why not the life of this tiny little monastery with these 4 monks? And that felt digestible for me. That felt like something that I could do. And there's lots of places in the movie that we had to shoot in Dallas to make up this one tiny monastery. So there was no way, I could not afford to, do a Jack Fisk and build one like Days of Heaven. I couldn't build the house. So that's what we had to do, some movie magic. And I knew I had that in me. I knew there was lots of things that I could do. And I had people like Father Theophan who could be there for me and really guide me in all the right things liturgically about Orthodoxy, that I didn't want to fall through the cracks because I was focused on maybe an actor or maybe the production design. So,
well, it sounds wonderful. And as you created this character, the abbot, Father John, he is the fool for Christ in the story. And you were able to take incidents from the lives of the Desert Fathers, from the lives of fools for Christ, from every nation throughout the history of Orthodoxy. And my impression is that Father John doesn't do anything that wasn't done by somebody in the history of Orthodoxy.
Correct. A lot of the inspiration came from St. John, San Francisco. I couldn't take on his life yet. I would love to do that one day. So I just said, well, Father John will have a lot of these moments that I thought were so wonderful. And we had a chance to go and venerate the relics of St. John right before we started filming the movie. And, so there's a lot of grace and blessings and prayers in this film. So like I said, it's a Orthodox folktale in the way that it is pulled from all of these saints and I think it's a really cool thing for people who are Orthodox to find Easter eggs of maybe their favorite saint, these moments that happened, and they're like, oh, that's probably from, because they're very recognizable. And if you're not Orthodox, I think it's just going to be very intriguing and entertaining to see these things that happen.
Yes. I was so impressed with Matthew Posey's performance as Abbot John, Father John. I think there are many ways that in the hands of a less professional actor, it could become cute, or overly emotional, trying to make things as intense as possible. Right. And of course, he's not Orthodox.
He's not. And I knew that I didn't know any Orthodox actors of that age. And I knew that Matthew could be Orthodox. And I was, just concerned that someone that was Orthodox maybe couldn't do the type of acting. And maybe because if you're Orthodox, maybe you take it too close to the heart and not really be this whimsical fool. And Matthew was only thinking, he researched, and we had so many meetings, and so he took it very seriously. I mean, he did some things in the film that we didn't talk about, and that he didn't even know what he was doing. But it was, when you watch the movie, you'll know, like, that's very spiritual. It's very touched. And Matthew was just portraying the character that he thought Father John was.
He picked it up perfectly.
He did.
He very much is an Orthodox abbot who was a soul reader and in some ways a fool for Christ. He just put all of that together very beautifully.
Yeah, and we had the other actors are like, we had Jordan Ross. He plays one of the monks, and he's on the TV show The Chosen. And he did a lot of his research. And then Frank Mosley's an actor from Los Angeles, and he watched actually a lot of your stuff and really learned a lot about Orthodoxy. And
he said he watched all of your introduction to Orthodoxy videos. It's a lot of time.
I know. He told me that Josh had suggested some links and things you might look at, and he came up to me and said, "I think I recognize you," which is like the opposite for an actor. Recognize somebody who's not an actor. And he said, I watched some of your videos. And I said, well, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you did. I hope they were helpful. He said, yes, I watched all of them. And I think there are 35.
Yes.
So wow, what a commitment.
He did the most research of anyone. Yeah.
God bless him. Yeah. And I happened to be visiting the set the day he did his the big scene for his character. And it was astonishing. It was overwhelming and beautiful and tragic and hopeful and everything without a word. It was a beautifully written scene. I know you get a lot of the credit. The vision was yours,
right?
Jeff. But wow, he just brought it to life in such a beautiful way. We
had talked about what I wanted him to do, and he called me one day because I'm going to do this performance that I don't want to tell you about it, but we can try it, and if not, we can do what you want to do. And it was so much better than what I had anticipated or what I had written. And to see that beauty in that scene it's really, really great, because his character's name's Genesius, which is my patron saint. And I took that icon during This World Won't Break. Everywhere on set that we went, we always had this painting of Saint Genesius, and it hangs in his cell. My icon hangs in his cell in the movie, so the Genesius icon.
Well, who is Saint Genesius? Why don't you tell us who he is?
Yeah, it's a saint who was a performer during Diocletian's era, and he was not Orthodox. He was not Christian. He was juggling one night, performing a play mocking the religion, mocking Christianity, and he baptized himself on stage one night, and it took, and the heavens opened. And as the more and more he performed, Diocletian realized this was no longer a performance; it was a prayer. And he's the patron saint of comedians, actors, clowns, poets, and lawyers. So I threw that one in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's been a good friend to you for at least 10 years now, I guess.
Yes, of course he has.
You've come to know well.
I was really glad that Frank was the one who got to play him, because really this film, I feel this film for me is, I'm not a scholar in Orthodoxy, and so this film I do feel a little bit like Genesius, as in saying, like, I don't have everything to offer, but I have this. I have these talents for entertainment.
Yes. Well, that's wonderful. The other thing that I got to see that day was the actor who plays the visiting archbishop.
Oh, yes.
And he was walking around wearing archbishop robes, looking, automatically, I almost wanted to go up and get his blessing.
Yes.
But he couldn't memorize the short prayer, "O Heavenly King," that we all know by heart.
Right.
And so you ended up with somebody holding a cue card.
We had cue cards.
I took a photo of him standing on the bishop's dais with the camera in front of him, and above the camera is a "O Heavenly King," so he can remember the words.
Yes. That was Max Hartman, and he was so nervous that day. He's a professional actor who's been in LA. He's I think he was the voice of Domino's Pizza for like 10 years. He has a really booming voice, and I've never seen him nervous. I've seen him perform 1,000 times, and he was so nervous because of the respect he had for the cathedral and for all the people that were around, that were helping out, because we actually had real we had real deacons and subdeacons, and we had Father Theophan, and so he was surrounded with the real deal, and he took it very professionally.
Oh, that's wonderful. Gosh. Well, I know you were praying for everybody, and that's how you get, praying for everybody is how you get the performances you hope to eventually get. I want, if you're comfortable talking about it, the day I was there, I think it was September 14th. Yes, in the morning we did the Feast of the Cross liturgy, so I got to see some filming that afternoon.
Yes.
A couple of people told me you had just come from filming, not on the island, but just on the coast, where you were allowed to use 100-year-old building that looked weathered, but it was very sturdy. And you were going to shoot some scenes inside of there. And unexpectedly, it seemed that some evil spirits began to be provoked inside the house. And were disturbing to the crew and to the cast and everybody. It was just very, agitated. And Father Theophan, I think you did a house blessing as a way of coping with this. I think about those actors thinking, what the heck is going on as you're going through with the incense and the, sprinkling the water and all. Father Theophan, would you be willing to talk a little bit about that day?
Sure. So this is at the house in Tawakana, which is about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Dallas, Southwest. Beautiful old dormitory building that was part of a college in Tawakana, this small town. It has functioned as a sort of Christian ministry house for quite some time, where the owner would have Christian conferences and people would come, perfect for people staying in a bedroom, an old dormitory, basically. But what we didn't know is what had actually occurred in the house in years past. And we found out that several horror films had been shot in that house.
Wow.
And it's old, and rather than it being seen as a Orthodox monastery, men's monastery, it could be seen as a very creepy place as well, if you were to try to shoot a horror film there. The first film was shot in the 70s, and it was very dark and was about demonic possession as well. And they made a second version of that film later on. And so when you're dealing with things like this and you don't know what else all happened in, it was a women's dormitory, but you don't know the history of a place. But when people start coming to you and there is spiritual activity, demonic activity going on, people being wakened in the night by a cold hand, all sorts of different things. One of our crew members who was really important, he lives near the house. And one night when we were away filming on the island in the Gulf of Mexico, he had a very strong feeling that he needed to go down to the house to check on everyone's cars and make sure everything was safe. And he had a very disturbing sort of spiritual attack that night. And so when we returned, I started learning about all these things. People slowly started talking about them, and many of the people were not, Christians. So they're all seeing this, knowing it's real because they are experiencing these things. And then there's an Orthodox priest there that can actually do something about it. So at a critical moment, I think we decided we were going to one night do the house blessing. It's a large 3-story house with a basement, and we started way up in the corner, which was actually Abbot John's monastery cell room. And so we started in there before the holy icons and worked our way down the entire house and went down into the basement and out onto the grounds. That was a Saturday night, and I had to leave and drive home. I got home about 1:00 in the morning, but I had a text from Jessica, Josh's wife, the next morning after liturgy that she said, it's gone, and everyone can feel it, and they were being extremely productive that day. It was something sort of keeping us back, and not entirely, but you could imagine if you're going to bring holy icons and prayer and try to make an Orthodox movie into a place like that, the demons are going to have a problem with it. So we took care of it, and God blessed it. And we had many saints and faithful praying for us through the whole process. So you can't discount that at all.
I'm glad they had a priest on hand that could do this work that was so much needed. And yeah, you're right. You don't know what's happened to a building over 100 years, and a big building, a dormitory building. So time for a good clean out, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think things like that might have made an impression on the cast and crew. They weren't, by any means, they weren't all Christians. They weren't, they were professionals, most, who work in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And because of your connections, Josh, after This World Won't Break. Sorry, I'm going to say it wrong. This World
Won't title.
You had the connections to call on real professionals who could do an excellent job.
Right.
But I'm sure for many of them, it was the first house blessing they ever saw.
Right.
And, yeah, I hope that gave them something to think about later on.
Yeah, there was I mean, I could tell that they were all very intrigued, like what's going on as we're filming, all the different liturgical things and the things that happen in a monastery. They were very interested, as in, like, this is very beautiful, and how we production designed and dressed all the sets. And I would walk by and see them all looking at the icons and kind of studying the icons. And
that's great.
All trying to, make sure that they sign the cross the correct way, and making sure, do I look okay? Do I look Orthodox? You do. You look fantastic. So they were very intrigued and took it very seriously, which I was not surprised, but I was very happy with that. I mean, they're all professionals. I was not expecting anything less, but I was really, yes, I was amazed of how intrigued they were, and how they were very welcoming to Father Theophan. And the fact that they could go to Father Theophan, I was so busy running around, nobody really had a time, because there were several people who had several experiences, and I did not know about it because they were talking to Father Theophan when I was on set. And so there was a nice, it's a very safe place. I can say that.
I'm touched by how much they respected and valued you, Josh, and their friendship with you. That there are certainly plenty of movies, I assume, where people are acting a love scene, and the minute the cameras go off, they're angry at each other, or they're having to say words that then they mock, you know. But it sounds like they were circumspect. They were careful to make sure they treated everything with the sobriety that you were bringing to both of you, Father Theophan, as well. We express, as Orthodox, we express that we really believe this stuff and we value it, and that we are cautious and respectful in dealing with it. And thank God, it sounds like they really picked up on that and were able to reflect it back and follow your example. Yeah.
I think so. It was beautiful.
Many of them, I can say many of them did have a Christian background of sorts. And so even for those maybe that had stopped going to church a long time ago, or it was a faith of their childhood, this whole experience caused them to think a lot about what this was and why we were taking it so seriously. Yeah.
Thank God for that. You don't know what long-term effects that might have. I was just thinking about the palpable difference between that building before and after you did the blessing, that even they could feel that, ahead of time they might have said, scoffed and think it's just mumbo jumbo, but they could really sense something was different. It made me think about something I heard recently, which is, why did Christianity succeed in the Roman Empire? Why did it take over when they went from being a tiny minority that were persecuted to finally the entire city of Rome has become Christian? And I've heard theories that it was partly social, that the respect given to women and even to slaves, made them eager to join the faith, or that the theology was so compelling, or that we had the best preachers. But I recently read something saying that really is our 20th, 21st century perspective on what we think would be effective. But if you read the early documents, what it was power over evil spirits.
Amen.
The miracles, the healings, and particularly that Jesus had a power over the evil one that nobody else had. And I think even Athanasius says something about that it's like, well, if you don't believe, try it for yourself, and you will see that the evil spirits flee when you say the name of Jesus. So this is something that in our post-Enlightenment West, we no longer expect that kind of, well, we don't expect that they're evil spirits either, but that power is still there. It's never
pulling down of idols and temples dedicated to the old gods. And yes, we are seeing a resurgence of neo-paganism and sort of a recreation of old things, but it's inspiration from the demons again. But time and time again, we are also seeing people come out of those dark backgrounds and find the light of Christ in orthodoxy.
Yes.
So it's still happening. And as the world grows darker, the light becomes that much brighter. And so.
Yes, it surely does. And our Lord has the ability to snatch somebody out of the center of hell. If he wants to claim somebody, he can do that. And I recently heard a story about a man who was a thoroughgoing Satanist, and he worshipped Satan and he loved Satan. And he found himself praying, Satan, I love you so much that I would give you my life, I would give you my soul, and you don't have to do anything in return. My love for you is that selfless. And what happened was Satan's hold over him broke at that moment, because Satan can't handle love. It was genuine, pure love in the wrong direction. But that's something that Satan, his fingers break off.
Wow.
He can't hold on to that. Well, we're in for some interesting years ahead, I think. And Thank God we got the good team on our side. Yes, Josh, were you about to say something?
Oh, I was just reminded when y'all were talking about that. I was like, that old building, that 100-year-old building, has never heard that many Jesus prayers before, because we had to do so many takes of actors saying the Jesus prayer. So yes,
Well, that's great.
that's a beautiful thing. There was lots of Jesus prayers.
Well, we know how effective that is then. It sounds like the making of this movie then was a spiritual experience for both of you, a very positive one that you came away with, not a lot of frustration or mixed feelings, but rather that things went about as well as it could, or even better than expected. And you feel some contentment about the final product whenever we get to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was the grace of God. All the things that could have gone wrong, should have gone wrong, did go wrong for half a second, were removed. And this film, we brought so many people down to the coast of Texas, and that's a whole nother story about this island that we went on. It's a primitive island, and you have to get there by boat, 30-minute boat ride with all of our gear and all of the people. And
you had a lot of rental gear in a boat.
yes, I didn't put that on the insurance thing, but and so we only had a day out there, and we had to get off that ocean. And Jess comes over, and she's like, Jessica's my wife. She was the producer on the film. My whole family was involved. I remember she was saying, we've ran out of food and we're about to run out of water. And I was like, it's okay, because we just wrapped. So there were these moments of, we weren't given a lot, but we were given just the right amount every single day.
Given what you needed.
I'm very thankful for all the prayers of that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait to see it. When I tell people about it, they say, well, when will we be able to see it? So that's my question. When will it be out?
That's a great question. We are in the post section, which we're editing the film. My son, Julian Jordan, he's 22 years old, and he's my co-editor. And Father Theophan got to see a very, very, very rough assembly, but we the movie is taking place. It takes a long time to make a film, and we're doing it as fast as we can. We want to be able to hit up all the international film festivals. But we are still in the process of raising money for the movie, because we still have post sound, which costs a lot of money, the score, marketing, design. So we have a long way to go, but in a short amount of time. So if people they can follow us on social media. They can also go to holyfoolfilms.com and see our progress. And I say sometimes, if you can't donate or invest, you can always pray for this film, because I've seen it work for this film. Because I can't tell you enough. I mean, on one of our last days at that house, everyone left, and I was supposed to meet everyone at the cathedral. And I had all the gear. I had the camera, all the lights, and everyone left. And it had just rained that night. I didn't realize I was in a sand pit, and I almost didn't make it to the rest of the shoot. And luckily, one of the groundskeeper came over and pulled me out, and I was on my way about an hour and a half too late. So it's just those moments of like just praying and thinking like, is this going to happen? Is this going to be possible? Even, am I getting out of this sand pit? And we have, and we will. So yes, we're in the editing process, and we'll have updates, and people can they can go to those places and donate, and or invest, or pray, like I said.
And you have a GoFundMe?
That's true. We have a GoFundMe. It's El Tonto por Cristo. That's the GoFundMe. And people can go to that, and that's a way to give as much as you want. So it's really exciting. We are so excited. They always say, the most important thing in cinema is getting it in the can, and we have gotten it in the can, and it's being edited. And we're lucky enough to have composer Michael Paraskavis, he's been Orthodox his whole life. He lives out in Los Angeles. He scores Marvel movies and does things like Frozen, and he's so ready. He was in town, and he got a chance to see a rough cut. And his dad's the choir director at St. Seraphim Cathedral. So, and we're going to be using the choir for the post sound. So there's lots of things we still have to do. When you blink your eye, it's it'll all be there.
Well, I'm going to really look forward to that. Is there anything else? Is there any questions I should have asked that I didn't think of asking? Anything else either of you wants to comment?
I'm not sure. I think that you covered so much so well, and I'm just glad I didn't cry during this. I normally get really emotional talking about the movie. I think I also haven't had time to cry, and so there's just been so much help, and there's so many people to thank, and we'd be here all day, because it does take an army, and a lot of the people in the Orthodox world have contributed, and I know that people are talking about it. That's the most important thing I think that people can do is word of mouth. And I think with this film, it's that's how I saw Man of God, was was word of mouth. That's how I saw Ostroff, was like word of mouth. There was no advertisement, and so just talking, and with our community of people that with our parishes and our friends and with social media, just talking about the movie, it makes it happen. So
well, thank you.
I think I would like to say a few things, Korea. In particular, film is, as you said earlier, such an intensely collaborative art form that it's very, very difficult to actually make one. And we hope that this film not only becomes sort of an evangelism for Orthodoxy, in the sense of, not that we're pushing Orthodoxy in the film, it's just shot and told, the story is told within an Orthodox context. But we truly hope that for an industry that has such a sort of stranglehold around it about who can actually make films and how you can make them, the SAG, everything we were talking about, the SAG permissions, all of that. We truly hope that this inspires Orthodox artists and storytellers to believe that they're able to also create, and whether they're writing poetry, novel, visual arts. Jonathan Jackson's, has a small film school. He's trying to inspire young people to realize that, yes, this is possible. But we need to give the Orthodox faithful, not only of America, but the whole world, a vision that we need to start telling our stories. And this is Josh's story, as he said. This is not my story. It's his story, and it comes from his experience of Orthodoxy. And that's a beautiful thing. These stories should be told. But it does take money and time and effort and dedication, sometimes risk. But I would really hope that this film gives our Orthodox faithful all over the world the vision that we all need to be telling good stories of the beautiful, the good, and true. Hollywood, and as we know, has owned too much of it for too long, and it's a stranglehold of what can actually even be seen in a movie theater. But as we saw with Man of God, people are starting to get a vision. Just yesterday, Josh and I were both sent a link to a film coming out about Solovki Monastery in Russia, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that.
Yes, they shot that movie for 2 years straight. That's what I was reading about recently. Yeah,
my goodness.
Beautiful.
It's a wonderful time to be Orthodox. I feel like we're at the crest of a wave, and so much is on the other side there. So many things we're going to see, and miracles, and people being saved, and people coming to the chalice, coming to the Orthodox Church, and becoming one with Jesus Christ and with us as his body. Wonderful things lie ahead.
I believe that too. We are seeing miracles. We are seeing remarkable things happen, and they will increase.
Yes, more and more of them. So how great it is to be at the crest of the wave with this beautiful movie you're making. And, people will look back to that. They'll say, oh, that was the year El Tonto por Cristo came out. Oh, that's right. It's going to be a landmark film, I believe.
Very exciting. I got lots of text and emails, like Father Theophan was saying, and people are like, what exciting times. All these Orthodox films are coming out, and it is. And, that's this is my message. This is the way I can show people what orthodoxy is, and I'm very blessed to be able to do that.
Well, thank you guys for taking the time to talk to me about the movie today, and I can just say over and over, I can't wait to see it. So I will have to resign myself to waiting, but I expect something brilliant once it arrives.
I'm excited to see it too.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Korea. You have a blessed day.
Bye-bye. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.